By now, Atkins had tweaked his message and considered his low-carb plan not just a diet, but a lifestyle that promoted good health.
Most Americans have a carbohydrate disorder, a lifetime problem, because you can see that they're overweight.
Atkins certainly saw himself as much more than a doctor selling a diet.
I don't like being labeled as a diet doctor. That's not what I do. What I do is practice complementary medicine. It means I might be treating cancer, heart disease, diabetes, Crohn's, colitis, arthritis with alternative, non-toxic treatments.
Unfortunately, Dr. Atkins' reputation was manipulated really by the media, only concentrating on lowest common denominator. Would want to hear, you know, quick weight loss and eat all the meat you want and bacon frying in butter. And unfortunately, that's how he was defined, when in fact, he was much more than that.
But on the other hand, it also cast him very strongly in the spotlight. The diet doctor gets a lot more media coverage, you know, than the diabetes doctor.
There was no doubt that Atkins liked the spotlight, but his friends insist that he was also something of an introvert.
I think that as wonderful a person as he was also very shy. And I think that people would not realize that about him. And I think he overcame that remarkably, never really portrayed himself as being as such. But knowing him personally, he had a shyness to him that you normally would not see.
He was very shy, which was strange, because once he was on stage, boy, you'd never guess he was shy. But basically very nice human being, a kind human being, very kind human being.
And he was always surprised when someone recognized him.
If people would recognize him and say, "Oh my God, they recognize me." He was very modest. He was not stuck up or anything, not in the least, not in the least. He was quite modest. He was, as I say, surprised.
And he always had time to talk to people about his diet.
I think that part of it is that he always wanted to communicate his message and always be out there, and he had invested so much all the years that I think he was always happy to answer questions, to do all of that, because it was a way of advancing what he strongly believed in.
Over the years, Dr. Atkins remained the bad boy of the diet world. But by now, he was tired of defending what he thought of as the only healthy way to eat.
In his later years, after 30 years of being attacked, he was a little cantankerous when someone attacked him.
The foods that are emphasized are the very foods the Heart Association has condemned as causing heart disease, the Cancer Society has condemned as causing cancer, and the Surgeon General has condemned for being the leading cause of death and disability in this country. I'm concerned.
I am concerned about
Dr.
the American
Mateo?
Heart Association's recommendations of Fruit Loops and Pop-Tarts having their seal of approval. If that's their recommendation, I'm certainly happy that they're not in my camp. I wouldn't want them there.
One of the things about Bob that I will always admire, he believed in what he believed in, and he was willing to take a lot of criticism for a long time, and he didn't deviate from that. He was very, very courageous in taking that stand.
I've been doing this diet for probably about 4 or 5 months, and surprisingly enough, I went to the doctor. My numbers dropped, my cholesterol was down like 40 points, the good was up, the bad was down, it was great. So here I am, continuing to eat as I will.
You're eating things that you think, how could this be on a diet? How could this steak, this rack of lamb, how could this lobster and drawn butter be on a diet? And I could eat the whole portion and come back with 6-7 pounds off the first week. So naturally, people were excited about it, and these are the same people who've had to put up with a low-fat diet, which not only left them hungry, but they didn't even enjoy the meals. And I think enjoying the meals was the key to my original success.
By the year 2000, it seemed that everyone was either on the Atkins diet or knew someone who was. Who cared what the doctors thought if your pants fit better and you could get into the swimsuit of your dreams? Then, a funny thing happened. Doctors started going on the diet.
People would come in to the office and say, well, you know, why are you here? Well, my doctor's doing Atkins, but he told me not to tell anybody, but he told me I should come here. And we started to see more and more of that. I mean, Bob and I would often laugh because it was so unlike what we saw years before.
I think research and doctors' own personal experience with the Atkins diet just started to turn the tide, nutritionists as well. And you have people who were willing and open-minded to see alternative ways of doing things and started saying, you know what, this does have merit. Is it 100% correct? Do I think it's 100% correct? They probably didn't think it was 100% correct, but they could see that there was directional benefits to looking at this thing in a more intelligent light.
Atkins rode this low-carb craze straight to the bank. In 2001, Forbes magazine estimated his earnings at $6 million from the sales of books, vitamins, food products, and even Atkins cruises.
Excuse me.
But his critics never stopped hounding him to back up his claims with scientific research.
Now, this diet's been out there for 30 years, or close to 30 years.
And I haven't been able to fund a study. I've asked
excuse
and
me.
asked
Excuse
and
me. 10 million books in print, and you can't fund the study?
Now I can. And I will be the first doctor to dig into his own pocket to do a study. And it will be me, but it was the first time I had any money
10 million books.
left.
With his profits, Atkins now financed a research study into his diet by Duke University.
Do you think I was showing a profit until recently? No, we spent too much time treating our patients. We were losing money on our practice. And we didn't have what we now have. As soon as we did, the first thing I did is I contacted a lot of researchers and said, let's get some studies done. And then I've been waiting for this for many, many years.
Then, in the spring of 2002, Atkins inadvertently provided fuel for his critics. While taking his vitamins at breakfast, Atkins collapsed on the table. Many believed he had had a heart attack. Atkins supporters say it was a heart infection.
He apparently had contacted a virus while in Turkey, and this virus had attacked the muscles of the heart. And it was entirely unrelated to coronary artery disease. This was just a specific infection to which he fought off beautifully.
I must confess I was suspicious. Here's someone who has attempted to make himself a representative of a carbohydrate-restricted diet, and again, appeared in public very frequently eating burgers and sausage and bacon and cheese and putting cream sauce over everything.
The doctor recovered, and a few months later, his diet received an unexpected boost. In July of 2002, the New York Times Magazine ran a cover story with the blaring headline, "What if it was all a big fat lie?" The article speculated that Atkins might be right after all.
And that really changed the thinking and the trend in the way we perceive fat and weight loss.
I think that article was very powerful. And then what happened is this is when people really started to go on Atkins, and then you had a whole series of books. You had the South Beach, all of these diets. I mean, that's all you heard was carbohydrates, carbohydrates, and it was as though people were convinced that it was the carbohydrates that were the problem, not fat.
What wound up happening then is health professionals started hearing that this diet was being endorsed by the New York Times. Other health professionals started hearing from their colleagues, gee, my buddy the cardiologist, my friend the surgeon, is starting to recommend this diet. If they recommend it, maybe I should too. The public then started to hear that professionals were recommending it, and people who had been on the fence said, well, I guess it must be good enough. I'm going to go out and try it.
I got on it about a year ago, and with some exercise, I really tightened up and lost some weight. I feel great.
My LDL is down. The bad cholesterol is down. My healthy cholesterol, the HDL, it's up. It makes no sense.
In the summer of 2002, Dr. Atkins finally had scientific data to back up his claims. In a short-term study by Duke University and financed by Atkins, dieters on the low-carb plan both lost weight and improved their cholesterol. Though this was a small, short-term study, the results startled the medical community.
We're all very surprised, and I think that's what's led us now to do longer-term and more sophisticated studies to really understand better the effects and how this diet works.
We don't know long-term studies. You know, how long, if somebody stays on Atkins for 20 years, well, what's the result? I mean, do they develop osteoporosis? Will their HDLs stay high? Will their LDLs go up? I mean, we don't know this.
Then, just as it seemed he was getting the vindication he'd fought for 30 years, a late-season snowstorm ended his crusade. On Tuesday, April 10th, 2003, Dr. Atkins, walking to work as usual, slipped on a patch of ice and hit his head.